purpose of this paper is to research the PECS program and how to implement it in my classroom. I'm currently teaching a self-contained 115 classroom with 5 autistic students, with 4 being nonverbal. I am very interested in learning everything about PECS and how it will help students succeed in school and their everyday lives. I want to improve my knowledge of how and when to implement PECS so I can teach my paraprofessionals to be successful. I would like to research how to allow nonverbal students to have a voice in their daily lives and education. I want to ease their frustrations and make their lives more productive. The issue I have with PECS and how to set up my classroom, set up their individual schedule, PECS communication individual folders, and finding communicating apps for their iPads. Students' communication and behavior issues are challenges with ASD students. My goal is to learn as much about PECS and to teach my paraprofessionals so my classroom can be inclusive to learning. Teaching is a very complex process. A more realistic model for describing the elements necessary to create effective educational environments is portrayed by the pyramid approach to education. When one thinks about a pyramid, we must consider the bottom to be a wide and firm foundation that must be built before the remainder of the pyramid be built. In hopes of getting the student to learn, one must get rid of inappropriate behaviors. Our main goal as a teacher to do so we need to do to make lessons more effective. Poorly planned lessons may lead to inappropriate behavior. Before one can eliminate the behavior, first we must determine why it is occurring and replace it with one that meets the same goal for the student and that is more socially acceptable. Within the PECS system, there are 2 core elements of the base of the pyramid. The first element address deals with what we should teach students, or functional objects. Functional objects involve skills that are necessary for the development of independence. The main goal in teaching students with ASD should be the same goal as all other students, to teach them skills so that when they leave school, they can obtain a good job and be independent of their parents. The second core element involves the use of the powerful reinforcement systems. All lessons should begin with signaling and identifying the potential reinforcer. On some occasions, we may provide small rewards, such as praise, or even provide some tokens to help one understand how long the task is. When we do this, it is called within task reinforcers. The timing of the reward is critical when it's time to use reinforcers. Reward should be given within 1/2 second after the task is completed. If not, the power of the reinforcer is reduced. It is often thought as initiation versus responding versus imitation. The top elements of the pyramid deals with the issues of how to teach effective lessons. When one plans to teach a new skill, we must know how that skill will help the student gain more independence either now or in the future. Direct instructions and simple responses that are teacher initiated are considered discrete trial. Skills that require a series of smaller responses put together in a particular order and initiated by teacher are considered sequence trials. One must consider specific teaching strategies when making a detailed lesson plan. Minimizing and correcting errors is another important factor when making lesson plans. The 4-step error connection procedure is when the teacher models who, practice, switch, repeat. Back step is when the teacher goes back to the last correct step, prompt through error step, and differentiately reinforce. The most important part of the effective lessons is collecting data, then analyze it to see what drives the next lesson. The elements of lessons involving PECS are very much like any other lesson. The pyramid approach offers teacher and parents a problem-solving orientation by which they can design and analyze effective lessons, including those for our most complex students. The pyramid approach essentially is how we interact with the students. As teachers, we all want something from the student after we have taught the lesson. Some refer to as let's make a deal with our students. The next element of the pyramid involves functional communication and social skills. As we all know, both are important for an ASD student. The behavior directed to another person who in turn provides related direct or social rewards is called functional communication. There are two broad reasons for someone to communicate with others. In most cases, we are requesting or demanding something. In phase one, the student is taught the nature of communication. The student will learn to approach a teacher or another student, reach toward, direct an action, give a picture, and receive a desired outcome, the item requested. During this phase, there must be two adults to work with students. As one initiates, the other will physically prompt the student. There are no verbal prompts used and present one picture at a time. Different types of reinforcers are used in symbol pictures to match motor skills of the student. Backward chaining is another teaching strategy that teaches a chain or sequence or behaviors by reinforcing mastery of the last step, then the next to the last step. Next, phase two, we teach the students to be persistent, so we must arrange for their communicative initiations to become slightly more difficult over time. This phase also teaches them to communicate in real-world situations and for them to keep trying when their initial attempts don't work. We do this by systematically eliminating both environmental and listener prompts that might be leading the student to initiate communication. Phase three can only be implemented if the student is a very persistent communicator. This phase starts with discrimination between a highly preferred picture and a distractor picture. Phase four is when a student requests present and non-present items using a multi-word phase by going to the book, picking out the picture symbol of I want, putting it on a sentence strip, picking out the picture of the desired object that is wanted, putting it on the sentence strip, removing the sentence strip from the communication book and handing it to the teacher for the aid. By the end of this phase, the student has 20 or more pictures in their book and is communicating with a variety of partners. Phase 5 is when the student spontaneously requests a variety of items and answers the question, what do you want? This is the only time that we are directly asking, what do you want? Phase 6 is when our student answers, what do you want? What do you see? What do you have? What do you hear? And what is it? And spontaneously request and comments. At this point, we are able to teach communication across the day. Last, does PECS work? Does it help students acquire function communication skills? Another question is how the use of PECS impacts upon other behaviors such as social skills, behavior management, speech development, etc. In terms of the acquisition of skills within PECS, we observed rapid skill growth even with students with autism as young as 24 months. Since then, other interventionists have noted successful use of PECS by students as young as age 18 months. Many have provided database reports of successful acquisition of skills within PECS, including Swartz, Garfunkel, and Bauer, 1998, and Charlotte Christie, Carpenter, Charlotte Christie, Legane, Genk, and Lee, 1998, Carpenter, Charlotte Christie, 2000. Through follow-up observations of 67 students aged 5 years and younger who used PECS for more than 1 year showed that 59% developed independent speech. This is from Bondi and Frost, 1994. That is, these students stopped using PECS and used speech as their sole mode of communication, although often with continued language delays. Another 30% spoke with simultaneously using PECS. Swartz, Garfunkel, and Bauer, 1998, also found strong support for the use of PECS with preschoolers with various communication deficits and noted a positive correlation regarding the development of speech. According to B.F. Skinner, 1957, it is more useful to understand the functional control of verbal behavior than to focus attention upon its form. He defined many of fundamental verbal operands such as minds, texts, interverbals, and autolectives.